The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's September the 20th, 2024. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com. Joined this morning by Izubee Charles as we give Matt Shodell the morning off as we discuss the news of the day. Presented today by Caneswear, your ultimate destination for all your Miami Hurricanes merchandise needs. No matter what you want and who you want it for, Caneswear is your place to go. And we'll talk a little bit more about Caneswear as we go forward in the show. But Izubee, I thought we'd start off this morning talking about this weekend's game, because the more I look into it and the more I research USF, the more excited I get for Saturday night at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere. The students are expected to really turn out. And USF is pushing this as an opportunity to upset one of the kingpins of college football this year, a team that they would like to look at as a state rival, and that's the Miami Hurricanes. So the thing that I love about it, I know I'm a little bit of a broken record on this for people that have seen our shows earlier in the week, so I'm not going to go on and on and on. But for me, this is one of maybe a handful of opportunities in this season for Miami to be challenged. And I'm not talking about being challenged physically on the football field. I'm talking about being challenged mentally, being challenged in preparation because of all the different things that South Florida does. And to me, that is a good thing. To me, that is what makes a football team improve and helps them get prepared for what they might face down the road. So let's start there, Izubee. You have looked extensively, like I have, into this South Florida team. What are you expecting to see on Saturday night at Raymond James Stadium?
Yeah, I'm expecting a huge crowd. You know, they've been kind of pumping this thing up for the last week now. They sold out their student section. The team posted they filled up their recruiting section, so a lot of recruits going to be in the crowd as well. Not sure too many are going to be guys Miami's chasing after, because you know those two programs recruit at different levels. No shade to USF, but you know that's just one thing. And they're kind of really blowing this up. They're saying, "Hey, Pack, Ray J." We see all the guys on Twitter and X, the Tampa USF fans kind of trolling the Hurricanes. This is kind of like their miniature Super Bowl. Obviously, they don't want to call it that, but they're absolutely pumping this thing up and making it as big as possible. And, you know, that's one element that you love to see. Obviously, they're not, you know, the Floridas or the Florida States, but they're an in-state team, in-state rival, a lot of familiarity with the two programs. You know, we have coaches at Miami that played at USF, and, you know, a guy like DVD that's coaching those DBs that are going to be looking to slow down, you know, Miami's passing attack and things like that. And like you mentioned, just little things here and there that are making this game excited. And then kind of on the field, USF has shown they can hang with, you know, big dogs like Alabama. Obviously, Alabama put it on them in that last 6 minutes of that game, but they've shown they can play up to competition. But like I said in one of our shows earlier this week, they can play down to their competition. We're down 14-0 against Southern Miss. That isn't a really good football team. So I'm excited to see, you know, which USF we see. We're going to see the USF that played toe-to-toe with Alabama for the first three quarters. We're going to see the USF that was down 14 against Southern Miss. Regardless of that, great team. Really like their quarterback, Byron Brown. Dual threat guy, more of a runner than a passer. You know, he's, I think, throwing about 56% completion rate right now. 2 touchdowns, but leads the team and passing and rushing. And they have 2 really good backs that I really like. Naquan Wright used to play at Florida. And then another guy, number 8, I keep forgetting his name, but he's a speedster. And if he gets an open field, he can cause some troubles. Defense, very aggressive. Guys like to fly to the ball, and they cause a lot of turnovers. Hopefully the weather is good. The ball is not slippery. Miami hangs on to the ball, but just a few things that I'm excited to see, you know, as they face the Bulls this upcoming weekend.
So a lot of people want to poo-poo what South Florida did against Alabama. Yeah, they're saying it was a fluke. Alabama turned the ball over a few times. You know, things really didn't go right for them, and that helped South Florida. But I say total BS to that, because like whoever like guarantees that a football game is going to go perfect. Like, you know, it's been pretty perfect for Miami so far. They're not turning the ball over outside of the interception that Cam threw at Florida. They're protecting the football. They're doing the right things. They're not having an enormous number of penalties that are setting them back, anything along those lines. But when they show up at 7 on Saturday night at Raymond James Stadium, there's no guarantees they're not going to turn the ball over. There's no guarantees they're not going to get called for penalties. There's no guarantees that they're not going to have a bad night. So you got to respect, you know, what USF did at Alabama because it was a real football game on the road in an SEC venue. They didn't play quite as well when they played Southern Miss, and they ended up winning the game. But so I just think this is a real football game, and that's what I love about it. So what matchups could give Miami a challenge here? That up-tempo offense that South Florida runs, to me, is the ball game, man. You look back to the struggles that Miami had last year defending up-tempo offense. You got a quarterback that can run here, and if up-tempo offense has a tendency to instill a little bit of panic in a defense. Their minds are racing. They're having to think real fast. They're having to get signals in a little bit of a different way than they are typically accustomed to. It just changes everything, and change inspires chaos and uncertainty at times. And Miami's got to prove that they can handle all of that. And they obviously haven't been tested with it this year. It totally derailed them last year at North Carolina. So I'm sure Lance Guidry took some serious notes from that day, and I'm sure he is determined not to let that happen again. I'm sure Miami will show up very prepared to deal with the South Florida offense. But that has to translate to the football game. So, I love that matchup. Now, I mentioned the fast-paced attack. They typically snap the ball, Izubee, within 15, 20 seconds. And I believe like the headsets that are on the players cut off after about it's typically like 20 seconds. So at 15 seconds to go on the play clock, I believe. So there's some different dynamics that will come into play there in terms of getting those plays in quickly. Do you see that aspect of it being a factor for Miami?
I do think so, and that was kind of gonna, lead to what I was gonna say. I think having that headset communication is gonna help the Hurricanes. Obviously, they'll have time. Well, they won't have a lot of time, but just having that, hey, quick, Kiko, this is what we're gonna do. Communicate it with the guys, and I think Lance Guidry, like you said, kind of learned from his mistakes last year, and that's one thing I really do like about Lance Guidry. He really, really makes adjustments on the fly. If there's something going wrong again, he's down there with those guys. Hey, this is this, and whatever that is, whatever the case may be. And also just having a guy like Kiko Manoa, second year in the system, obvious leader of that defense. He's going to be instrumental in that game. If things get out of order, things get out of whack, he's going to be, hey guys, calm down, we got this. And like when we spoke with Darren Smith on Wednesday, if one guy isn't, on their assignment, that's how you kind of blow up a defense in a hurry up type situation. So I feel like the Hurricanes kind of play that sound football. We really haven't seen any, big busts in the secondary or anything crazy like that. But like you said, a lot of things can happen. Miami they're not going to play perfect football the whole, year. So I'm excited to see how they combat this, hurry up, fast paced offense. And I think that offense can, catch you slipping sometimes. Like I said, two very good running backs, and Byron Brown is a very athletic quarterback with a live arm that can make defenses pay for little mistakes if they catch you in a hurry up. But I feel like, the best way to stop a hurry up is don't let them go forward. So if Miami can hold solid, force them in a third and long situation, force them in obvious passing downs, I feel like that hurry up would be a bit ineffective, but we're just going to have to see on Saturday when those two teams line up on the field.
So the challenge starts with Byron Brown. He's a dual threat quarterback to the max. Man, this is a guy that can do it all, running and passing, on steroids. Like, this guy is really, really, really good. He set several school records in 2023, threw for 3,292 yards with 26 touchdowns, completed 65% of his passes. In addition to that, he led the team in rushing with 809 yards. He scored 11 more touchdowns on the ground. I mean, how many guys around the country do you see with the capability of doing it like this, both running the ball and throwing the ball? Not many. But it's just not about Byron Brown by himself. I mean, they rank number 8 in the nation in rush yards per game, 269 yards rushing. The Miami defense has not been tested as, in the run game. We don't know how they're going to hold up against a good run game. That's going to be one of the things that we're going to have to get answered on Saturday. Is South Florida going to be able to get, gash them a little bit at times and pick up big chunks on the ground? We hope not, obviously, but you just don't know. So that's a couple of the matchups with the South Florida offense against the Miami defense that we're looking at for Saturday. And then on the flip side, okay, now Miami's as hot offensively as any team in the country. I mean, the Canes are averaging 53 points, which is number 5 in the nation. They're number 3 in the nation in total offense, 609.3 yards. Number 2 in passing offense, 405.3 yards. Number 33 in rush offense at 204 yards, even though the Miami running game has not really gotten going yet in real time. I mean, they're picking up a lot of those yards late in games. We're going to talk about this in a minute, Izubee. Do they try to go more ball control here to give the defense a little bit of a break and time the rest in defending that offense? But Miami's number 3 in passing efficiency, number 3 in third down conversion percentage. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on and on. I mean, the only place where Miami's average is really on red zone offense. That's where they need to improve. But other than that, these offensive stats and category rankings are as good as we've ever seen here. I mean, we have never been about being at the top of total offense rankings or passing offense rankings. Even in the glory days of Miami, it wasn't about that. It was about just quality, balanced play. So this is what South Florida is facing coming into this game. And Izubee, all evidence is that the way they're going to deal with Miami is they're coming after. They're going to come after Cam Ward, and they're going to try to make things happen and create havoc in the backfield because they're going to know if they just sit back. I mean, they watched what the Canes have done. If they just sit back, they're going to get shredded. I mean, they gave up 397 passing yards last weekend against Southern Miss and 472 total yards. Okay. So if they sit back in this game, Miami's going to crush them. They're going to come after Cam Ward.
Yeah, for sure. When I was watching, bits and pieces of the Alabama game, I think one thing they did really, really well in those first 3 quarters was really, really put that pressure on Jalen Monroe and force him out of the pocket, scrambling, things like that. I think their secondary held up, pretty solid for big parts of that game. But what Alabama really started to do to really break that defense down was pound the rock. Their running back, Justin Haynes, started finding those open lanes. And that's when you really saw a USF defense kind of get on their toes and kind of, step back a little bit from, sending 7 to 8 guys, each time, on that pass rush. But like I said, when we spoke about this on Wednesday, I think Miami really needs to, come out and insert that dominance, say, hey, we're going to run the ball. We're going to have our way with you in the trenches. Obviously, the Hurricanes have one of the best offensive lines, in the ACC and, most likely in the nation. And with the guys like Inez Cooper and Jalen Rivers set to come back, they'll be at full strength. I feel like if they set that tone early, like they did against Florida, pushing that Florida defensive line 6-7 yards back, kind of tell USF, hey, we're not just a one-trick pony. We're not going to just throw the ball around the yard. We can get dirty. We can get down. We can run the ball against you guys. I think that's going to be a key for that game early on. Miami establishing the run and getting a guy like Damian Martinez really active. I thought against Ball State would really kind of see him have his coming out game and really, show why he was one of the most sought-after transfer running backs. But I really do want to see this against a USF team, who I think is the most talented team Miami's played so far this year, 4 games in.
All right, and there's several other subplots that we're watching in this game. I mean, we've been talking all week. There's certain individual players that we like to, I think are due to bust out a little bit, who came in the transfer portal. Guys like Damian Martinez and Sam Brown, for example. Looking to see those guys get a little bit more involved in offense and make some moves. And one of the stories we have on the website this morning is talking to Mario Cristobal, and he is really, really happy with the focus of his team and how they're not letting anything on the outside distract them. They're coming, they're working hard every day. They understand they got to keep building to get better and better and better. They understand what their big picture goals are. And he's been saying that he's very impressed with the laser focus that he's seen and the development of some of the younger players, which is allowing them to play a lot of guys in games. And Izubee, I think, when you look at the talent that's emerging on the roster, I think that'll continue. I think they will, we're going to see guys, the Popo Aguirres of the world, the OJ Frederics of the world, getting a lot of Jordan Lyle, those guys. We're going to see a lot of those guys, I think, every game this season.
No, 100%. I feel like kind of going back to that mindset of, not getting too big headed and all that good stuff. One, I think that starts with the type of kids you bring to the program. And two, I think it starts with a guy like Cam Ward. You see him in interviews, you speak with him. He's kind of the most level headed, calm, cool, collected guy that, I think I've seen lead this Miami team in the last 3 years I covered it. I feel like having a quarterback that's, obviously he's getting all these Heisman recognitions. I saw he was projected to go number 1 overall in the draft from, one of these services. And he's a guy that's simply saying, hey, let's go 1-0. Let's take this thing week by week. We have a lot of areas to improve still. And I feel like hearing that from a guy like Cam Ward, who's a clear-cut leader of this team, I feel like that just trickles down through the whole entire roster. And that kind of creates that culture that Mario Cristobal, wants at the program, saying, hey, 1-0 each week, take everything week by week. And like Coach Shannon Dawson said last week, you play the game, not the name. I feel like that's just kind of the mindset that this team has. And I feel like that mindset can carry a program like Miami very, very far. Because it's super easy to say, hey, Miami's back. This is their year. I feel like that's a thing you hear every single offseason. But, I genuinely think just how this roster is, built together and the guys that are leading this team, I think this is a team that can kind of, overdo those expectations and really kind of start bringing back Miami, working towards, what they used to be years ago.
All right, so one of the keys for the Miami defense is going to be the linebackers. Obviously Francisco Manoa calling the shots in the middle, but maybe to me, one of the really key players in this game is going to be Wesley Bissainthe, Izubee, because he is going to have to be able to do a lot of different things and keep his eyes open for the run, the quarterback run, and the short passes out in the flats and things like that. He'll be stressed a little bit in this game, but I think Wesley has shown us that he should be ready for it.
100%. I feel like his first 2 years, it was kind of, like a young deer, kind of finding his footing, wobbling a little bit around. And then he comes out these first few weeks in the season. He looks like one of, Santa's reindeers leading the charge. On Christmas Day, he just looks like a guy that has found his footing, has really solidified himself. And, we talked to Coach Cristobal about it. He said things just started clicking for him. Obviously, he had the immense talent. He showcased that at Miami Central, helping them win, I think, 3 or 2 consecutive state championships. And now I feel like he's comfortable. I feel like he's playing, the game that he used to play in high school when he was dominating. And it's things you love to see, matching him up with a guy like Kiko Manoa, the obvious leader of that defense, and then Wesley Bissainthe complimenting him. I think that's kind of been one of the biggest parts of his development, having a guy like Kiko that knows what he's doing, kind of feeding off him. And, like you mentioned, he's going to be tasked with, slowing down a Byron Brown who can get things done with their legs and that stable of running backs that they have at USF. So I'm really excited to see if he can continue that level of play. And I think his, game or whatever he does on the field is going to be crucial to slowing down that USF offense.
And we have stories on all this stuff on the website. Make sure you go and check out all of our pregame coverage for the South Florida game. Very detailed. We take a look at pretty much every aspect. So make sure you check out all those stories. But we also have a story on the website with South Florida's coach, which gives you a view from the other sideline. That's Alex Golish, and he's had a lot to say this week about the Hurricanes and how impressed he is with them. And then we also talked to some of the players as well and get their feedback. And one of those, for example, a lot of these kids really know each other. And, like Jason Vaughn is an outside linebacker for South Florida. He's one of the examples. And we had a chance to talk to him. And, he grew up, he went to Miami Palmetto. He grew up watching the Miami Hurricanes. Before he would go play youth league games, he would watch the 30 for 30 documentaries to get himself amped up. And he wanted to play for Miami. I'm sure there will be several guys on the South Florida team that wanted to play for Miami, and it didn't work out for him that way. But now he gets to play against Miami. And Izubee, these guys, are going to be amped up to prove themselves against the big fish, so to speak, here in the state of Florida this year. And I think that's going to make for just a very emotional, exciting game as well.
100%. Those kind of little storylines, things like that. That's not something an average person would kind of look into. One of the leaders of that USF team grew up in South Florida, watched the Canes his whole entire life. And obviously he ended up not playing for Miami, but he was kind of saying, hey, it's going to be awesome to have this game a part of my story and, who I'm becoming. And, he's gonna have a few family members down there, and obviously, if I was him, I'd want to take this game and say, hey, this is why you shouldn't recruit me, or hey, you messed up by not come getting me. And I feel like there might be a few more guys on that team that kind of have some type of not hate or animosity, but kind of, hey, I want to prove to you guys that I could have been a part of this program. So that's just one of the many, many, many storylines that I'm excited to see, this upcoming weekend. Obviously, like I said, in-state matchup, no matter who you're playing, if it's an in-state team, you're playing for bragging rights. And, that little talk that you say, hey, we beat these guys, they're not too far from us, things like that. So I'm really excited to see, kickoff tomorrow at Raymond James Stadium.
All right, we got a couple of recruiting stories we're going to talk about real quick too, but first let's hear from our friends at CaneSport.
Welcome to CaneSport. New store, new items, same great experience. Family owned and operated since 2010, CaneSport has the latest merchandise from the Miami Hurricanes, Miami Dolphins, Florida Panthers, Inter Miami CF, and more. Come visit us at our store in Davie on University Drive, just south of 595, or online at caneswear.com. CaneSport, the spot Miami fans shop.
All right, well, yesterday we brought you an interesting story on Miami's 10 most wanted 2025 recruits. A little later this morning, we're going to have a story that we'll be putting on the website talking about major targets that can be visiting the Miami Hurricanes this fall. And we're talking about guys like TJ Alford, a linebacker who's committed to Ohio State, Kellen Wiley, a linebacker, Javion Hilson, an edge rusher, the Miami's hard after, and Nate Marshall, a defensive lineman that they went into recruiting, Izubee, and they were bound and determined. Like, Nate Marshall was a kid that they absolutely wanted to make sure they got. It hasn't gone really well, but with the team winning and the possibility of getting some of these guys in on official visits here during the season, how big of a factor do you think that's going to be?
I think it's huge because this is the time that, Miami can start circling back and saying, hey, this is what we've been telling you about these last few months or last few years, that we're recruiting you. We're winning games now. Just come check us out again. I know we probably missed out on you that first time around, but hey, come check us out. Come give us a real shot. And we saw that in the past with Mario Cristobal and some of his, time at recruiting at Miami, specifically in the 2024 cycle. Obviously, Justin Scott commits to Ohio State. Miami kind of plays that wait and see game. At the end of the cycle, he ends up a Miami Hurricane. Kind of a similar situation, but a bit different at the same time. Armando Blunt, commits to Miami, flips to Florida State, and then at the end of the cycle, Miami circling back, saying, "Hey, listen, come back home, just give us a chance." And things end up happening in favor of Miami. We all know how good of a recruiter Coach Cristobal is, so I wouldn't be surprised seeing some of these guys start popping their head in Coral Gables, and things get a little bit interested, and some guys commit elsewhere. But super excited to see which guys that Miami really finishes out this class with. I think they're sitting at number 12 in the class rankings right now. I do think they'll hop in that top 10 by it's all said and done. But super excited to see what guys Miami really starts circling back around that they missed earlier this year.
Think Armando Blunt's a little happy that he didn't go to Florida State and stuck with Miami?
100%, man. It's kind of funny that things like that happen. You committed to Miami, you flip to Florida State, you end up coming back home for the better. Sometimes that doesn't work out in some kids' favor, but I feel like Armando Blunt lucked out. And he's getting some early playing time, too. It's funny that you mentioned that, too, because you see all over Twitter the FSU fan base and the players are like, oh, free the youngins, let the young guys play. So Miami's winning. Armando Blunt's playing. I don't think he's in a better situation than he is right now.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, a couple other recruiting stories we have for you today. The Hurricanes are among the teams battling for top 50 tight end recruit Caden Prothro. He's a 4-star from Bowden, Georgia. Miami continues pounding that state of Georgia for talent. Georgia and Texas right now are very hot as talent hotbeds, at least equal, if not greater, to Florida, and Miami is showing the appropriate respect. So we've got an update with Prothro for you guys, who is a huge priority as a tight end recruit. And we also have an update today on an offer that went out to Rising Texas 2026 offensive lineman. Man, I'm going to give this name a shot. Full Elite Primus. Man, I hope I said that correctly. But he has been intrigued by Miami now that he's been offered. And, we expect Miami to be very much in the mix for Pulamait Primus as his recruitment goes forward. We give you an update on him today as well. If you like the show, even without Matt Shodell, I hope hit your subscribe and like buttons. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube in growing our audience. And more so than anything, if you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please head on over to our website and join our gang there. It's the best fan community that you're going to find anywhere. And our whole staff, we do everything we can do every single minute of every day to give you guys the best information to equip you to enjoy your fan experience to the max. So head on over to CaneSport.com, get yourself a subscription if you're not yet part of our CaneSport gang. That's going to do it. Izubee and I are headed on the road. We're heading over to the Tampa area. Izubee is going to make a little pit stop. So be on the website tonight for some surprises from Izubee as he makes his way up to Tampa. And then we will be at Raymond James Stadium tomorrow night to bring you all the coverage of the Miami and South Florida game. So for Izubee Charles, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you again for waking up with us this morning. We'll see you next time, everybody.